Deep in the heart of an archaeological dig site, a team of researchers unearthed a fragment of pottery inscribed with lines of verse. At first glance, it seemed like just another relic of the past, until someone recognized the words. They matched an ancient ballad, a song passed down through generations, believed to be nothing more than a myth, but here it was, etched in clay, a tangible link between story and stone. This discovery wasn't an isolated event. Across the globe, similar connections have been found: ballads, legends, and hidden lore that seem to echo real events, preserved in the rhythms of poetry and song. Could these ancient myths be more than just tales? Could they be time capsules holding fragments of truth about our ancestors' lives, their triumphs, and their tragedies? In this video, we'll explore how these ancient narratives align with archaeological finds, unraveling the threads that connect myth to history. From the whispered stories of forgotten heroes to the echoes of long-lost civilizations, we'll uncover why these ballads matter and what they reveal about who we are today. So, let's step into the world of ancient ballads and hidden lore, where every verse might just hold a piece of the past. Long before the written word became the primary way to record history, societies relied on something far more intimate and enduring: the human voice. Oral traditions were the lifeblood of ancient cultures, a way to preserve not just stories but entire worldviews, values, and histories. Imagine sitting around a fire, the flickering light casting shadows as a bard recounted tales of heroes, gods, and distant lands. These weren't just entertainers, they were the keepers of memory, the bridge between generations. Through ballads and lore, they wove the fabric of their people's identity, passing down knowledge in a way that was both communal and deeply personal. Take the Iliad and the Odyssey, for example. For centuries, these epic poems were seen as purely mythical stories of gods and monsters, of a war that might never have happened. But then, in the late 19th century, discoveries like the ruins of Troy began to suggest that these tales might have roots in real events. The Trojan War, once thought to be a legend, suddenly had a historical basis. This raises a fascinating question. If these epic poems could hold kernels of truth, what other stories passed down through generations might contain hidden histories? The role of bards and storytellers was crucial in this process. They didn't just recite tales, they shaped them, adapting them to fit their audience while preserving the core truths. Over time, details might have been exaggerated or altered. Heroes became larger than life, battles more dramatic, but at their heart, these stories often carried the essence of real events. They were living histories, evolving with each retelling yet still holding onto the past. This blending of myth and reality is what makes oral traditions so powerful. They're not just stories, they're time capsules preserving the emotions, struggles, and triumphs of people long gone. And while we might not have bards around the fire today, the echoes of their voices still resonate in the ballads we uncover, the fragments of pottery we dig up, and the ancient sites we explore. These traditions remind us that history isn't always written in stone. Sometimes it's sung, whispered, or chanted, carried forward on the breath of those who refuse to let the past be forgotten. But what happens when these oral traditions meet the tangible evidence of archaeology? How do the stories told by bards align with the artifacts unearthed by modern researchers? That's where the real magic begins, a meeting of myth and material, where the past comes alive in ways we could never have imagined. Archaeology has always been a detective's game, piecing together the past from fragments left behind. But when it comes to ancient myths and ballads, it becomes something even more extraordinary, a way to test the stories we've been told for centuries. Could these tales, once dismissed as pure imagination, hold clues to real events and people? Thanks to modern tools like carbon dating and ground-penetrating radar, we're now able to peer into the past with unprecedented clarity, uncovering evidence that either validates or challenges these ancient narratives. Take the story of Troy, for instance. Long considered a mythical city born from Homer's imagination, its existence was debated for generations. That all changed in the 19th century when Heinrich Schliemann, armed with little more than a copy of the Iliad and a stubborn belief in its truth, began digging in what is now modern-day Turkey. Against all odds, he uncovered the ruins of a city that matched Homer's descriptions almost perfectly. Suddenly, the Trojan War wasn't just a story, it was history. This discovery didn't just rewrite textbooks, it opened up a new way of thinking about myths. If Troy could be real, what other legends might be waiting to be proven true? Today, archaeologists are using advanced technology to explore this question further. Carbon dating allows us to pinpoint the age of artifacts with incredible accuracy, while ground-penetrating radar lets us see beneath the Earth's surface without disturbing a single grain of soil. These tools have transformed archaeology from a game of educated guesses into a precise science, capable of revealing the truth behind even the most fantastical tales. But it's not just about proving myths true or false. Sometimes archaeology reveals layers of truth within these stories. For example, the Norse sagas' epic tales of Vikings and their exploits were once seen as exaggerated accounts of sea voyages and battles. Yet recent discoveries, like the Viking settlement at Elant's Ox Meadows in Newfoundland, have shown that these sagas were rooted in real journeys across the Atlantic long before Columbus set sail. The sagas weren't just fiction, they were oral histories preserving the memory of incredible feats that might otherwise have been lost to time. So, what other ballads and myths might hold similar secrets? Could the legends of King Arthur and his knights, for instance, be echoes of a real leader who fought to unite Britain during a time of turmoil? Or could the flood myths found in cultures around the world, from the Epic of Gilgamesh to the story of Noah, be distant memories of a shared catastrophe, like rising sea levels at the end of the last ice age? These questions aren't just academic, they're a way of reconnecting with our ancestors, of understanding how they saw the world and how they passed their knowledge down to us. As we dive deeper into the stories that have shaped humanity, it's worth remembering that myths and archaeology aren't opposites, they're partners. One gives us the emotional, human side of history, while the other provides the physical evidence to back it up. Together, they create a richer, more complete picture of our past, one that's as fascinating as it is enlightening. And as we'll see next, some of the most intriguing connections between myth and archaeology come from the ballads that have survived the test of time. Of all the ancient ballads that have survived the centuries, few are as captivating or as mysterious as the Epic of Gilgamesh. This Mesopotamian masterpiece, etched onto clay tablets over 4,000 years ago, tells the story of a king's quest for immortality, weaving together themes of friendship, loss, and the search for meaning. But buried within its verses lies a tale that feels eerily familiar. A great flood sent by the gods to wipe out humanity, survived only by a man named Utnapishtim, who builds a massive boat to save himself, his family, and the animals of the earth. Sound familiar? It should. This story predates the biblical account of Noah by centuries, raising the question, could these two narratives share a common origin? Archaeology offers some intriguing clues. In the early 20th century, excavations in Mesopotamia uncovered layers of sediment that suggested a catastrophic flood had swept through the region around 2900 BC. This wasn't just a minor overflow of the Tigris or Euphrates rivers. It was a deluge on a massive scale, one that would have left a lasting impression on the people who lived through it. Could this event have inspired the flood story in the Epic of Gilgamesh? And if so, could it also be the source of other flood myths found in cultures around the world? The parallels are hard to ignore. From the ancient Greeks to the indigenous peoples of the Americas, stories of a great flood appear in nearly every corner of the globe. While the details vary, sometimes it's a single survivor, other times a group, sometimes the flood is punishment, other times a test, the core elements remain strikingly similar. This has led some scholars to suggest that these myths might be distant memories of a shared event, perhaps a rapid rise in sea levels at the end of the last ice age around 10,000 years ago. But the Mesopotamian flood, with its specific time frame and archaeological evidence, offers a more concrete possibility that the story of Utnapishtim and later Noah was born from a real, localized disaster that became a universal symbol of destruction and renewal. What's fascinating about the Epic of Gilgamesh is how it bridges myth and history. Utnapishtim's story isn't just a cautionary tale. It's a reflection of the human experience, a way for ancient Mesopotamians to make sense of a world that could be both beautiful and terrifying. The flood, in this context, becomes more than just a natural disaster. It's a metaphor for the fragility of life, the power of the divine, and the resilience of the human spirit. And while we may never know for certain whether the flood described in the epic was based on a specific event, its echoes in other cultures suggest that it tapped into something universal, a shared memory that transcends time and place. So, what does this mean for our understanding of ancient myths? It reminds us that these stories aren't just flights of fancy, they're windows into the past, preserving the fears, hopes, and experiences of our ancestors. Whether the flood in the Epic of Gilgamesh was inspired by a real event or a universal archetype, it speaks to the enduring power of storytelling, the way it connects us across generations and cultures. And as we'll see next, this connection between myth and reality isn't limited to floods. It extends to other legends that have shaped the way we see the world. The legend of Atlantis has captivated imaginations for centuries, a utopian island civilization, described by Plato as a powerful and advanced society, swallowed by the sea in a single day and night of catastrophe. For many, it's a tale dismissed as pure fiction, a philosopher's allegory about hubris and the fall of great empires. But what if Atlantis wasn't just a myth? What if it was a memory distorted by time but rooted in a real event? Enter the Minoan civilization and the volcanic eruption on Thera, modern-day Santorini, a theory that bridges the gap between legend and history. Around 3,600 years ago, the island of Thera experienced one of the most explosive volcanic eruptions in human history. The blast was so massive that it's often compared to the eruption of Krakatoa in the 19th century, but on an even grander scale. The Theran eruption sent shockwaves across the Mediterranean, triggering tsunamis, blanketing nearby islands in ash, and likely contributing to the decline of the Minoan civilization on Crete. This was a society known for its stunning art, intricate architecture, and advanced maritime trade, a civilization that, in many ways, fits Plato's description of Atlantis. Archaeological discoveries at Akrotiri, a Minoan settlement on Thera, offer a glimpse into this lost world. Buried under layers of volcanic ash, the site was remarkably well preserved, revealing multi-story buildings, vibrant frescoes, and evidence of a sophisticated society. The ruins suggest a sudden, catastrophic end, tools left mid-use, food abandoned on tables as if life froze in an instant. Could this have been the real Atlantis? A thriving civilization wiped out by a natural disaster, its memory preserved in myth. The parallels are striking. Plato's account describes Atlantis as a maritime power with advanced technology, destroyed by a cataclysm. The Minoans, too, were seafarers known for their grand palaces and intricate plumbing systems. The Theran eruption, with its tsunamis and ash clouds, could easily have inspired tales of a city sinking beneath the waves. Over time, as the story was passed down, details might have been embellished. Atlantis became larger than life, a symbol of human ambition and its limits. Yet at its core, the myth may hold a kernel of truth, a memory of a real disaster that reshaped the ancient world. This connection between myth and disaster isn't unique to Atlantis. Across cultures, stories of cataclysms, floods, fires, earthquakes often serve as cautionary tales, preserving the collective memory of traumatic events. The Thuran eruption, like the Mesopotamian flood, reminds us that myths aren't just entertainment. They're a way for societies to process the unimaginable, to make sense of the forces that shape their world. But how do these stories survive? How do they travel across generations, evolving yet retaining their essence? That's where ballads and oral traditions come in. Just as the Minoan disaster might have inspired the legend of Atlantis, other cataclysms have been immortalized in song and verse, passed down through the ages. These ballads don't just tell us what happened, they tell us how people felt, how they coped, and how they remembered. From the ashes of Thera to the verses of ancient bards, the story of Atlantis is a reminder that myths are more than just stories. They're echoes of the past, whispers of events that shaped our ancestors' lives. And as we'll see next, these echoes aren't confined to the Mediterranean. They resonate in ballads and legends from every corner of the globe, each one a thread in the tapestry of human history. The Norse sagas are more than just tales of adventure and heroism. They're a window into the daring spirit of the Viking Age. These epic stories, passed down through generations, recount the exploits of explorers, warriors, and settlers who ventured into unknown lands. For centuries, many of these accounts were dismissed as exaggerated legends, the kind of tall tales you'd expect from a seafaring culture known for its boldness. But then came discoveries like Elant's Ox Meadows, a Viking settlement in Newfoundland, Canada, that turned these sagas from myth into history. Elant's Ox Meadows, uncovered in the 1960s, is the first and only confirmed Norse site in North America. Its existence proved what the sagas had hinted at for centuries, that the Vikings reached the shores of the New World around the year 1000, nearly 500 years before Columbus. The site revealed remnants of timber-framed buildings, iron tools, and even a small forge, evidence of a temporary settlement used as a base for further exploration. Suddenly, stories like the Saga of the Greenlanders and the Saga of Eric the Red, which described voyages to a land called Vinland, were no longer just entertaining fiction. They were records of real events preserved in the oral traditions of the Norse people. What's fascinating about these sagas is how they blend myth and history. While they contain fantastical elements like encounters with strange creatures or supernatural events, they also offer remarkably accurate details about geography, navigation, and the challenges of exploration. For instance, the sagas describe Vinland as a place with abundant grapes, wild wheat, and mild winters, details that align with the climate of parts of northeastern North America. This mix of fact and folklore suggests that the sagas weren't just stories. They were a way for the Norse to preserve their collective memory, to pass down knowledge of distant lands and daring voyages to future generations. But the Norse sagas aren't just about exploration. They also reveal the values and worldview of the Viking Age. These stories celebrate courage, resilience, and the pursuit of glory, but they also show the costs of ambition and the fragility of human life. Take the story of Thorvald Eriksson, Eric the Red's brother, who was killed by an arrow during an encounter with indigenous peoples in Vinland. This tragic episode, recounted in the sagas, highlights the complexities of Viking exploration, the clash of cultures, the risks of venturing into the unknown, and the human toll of such endeavors. So, what other sagas might hold hidden truths? Could the tales of Viking voyages to the British Isles, Iceland, or even farther afield contain kernels of historical fact waiting to be uncovered? The success at Elant's Ox Meadows has inspired archaeologists to take these stories more seriously. using them as guides to explore new sites and unravel the mysteries of the Viking Age. And as we dig deeper, we're reminded that the line between myth and history is often thinner than we think. These sagas, like the ballads of other cultures, aren't just relics of the past. They're living connections to the people who told them, a way to hear their voices across the centuries. They remind us that history isn't just about dates and artifacts, it's about the stories we tell, the way we remember, and the lessons we carry forward. And as we'll see next, this interplay between myth and reality isn't limited to the Vikings. It's a thread that runs through the fabric of human history, connecting us to the past in ways we're only beginning to understand. The tale of King Arthur and his Knights of the Round Table is one of the most enduring legends in Western culture, a story of chivalry, magic, and the quest for a utopian kingdom. For centuries, Arthur was seen as a purely mythical figure, a hero of medieval romances with little connection to historical reality. But what if there's more to the legend than meets the eye? Enter Tintagel, a windswept cliffside fortress in Cornwall, where archaeology has uncovered tantalizing clues that might link the Arthurian tales to a real historical context. Excavations at Tintagel have revealed the remains of a high-status settlement dating back to the 5th and 6th centuries, a time when Britain was a patchwork of warring kingdoms following the collapse of Roman rule. The site, perched dramatically above the Atlantic Ocean, yielded evidence of luxury goods imported from as far away as the Mediterranean, including fine pottery, glassware, and even fragments of wine amphorae. This wasn't just any settlement, it was a place of power, likely home to a ruler of considerable wealth and influence. Could this have been the seat of a historical figure who inspired the legend of King Arthur? The timing is certainly intriguing. The 5th and 6th centuries were a tumultuous period in British history, often referred to as the Dark Ages due to the scarcity of written records. It was a time of shifting alliances, invasions, and struggles for dominance, exactly the kind of backdrop that might give rise to stories of a heroic leader uniting the land. While there's no definitive proof that Arthur himself existed, the archaeological evidence from Tintagel suggests that the legend could be rooted in the memory of a real leader, perhaps one who fought to defend Britain against Saxon invaders. But how did this figure become the larger-than-life hero of medieval romances? That's where the power of storytelling comes in. Over time, historical events and figures are often romanticized, their deeds exaggerated and embellished to fit the ideals of the era. Arthur, once possibly a warlord or chieftain, was transformed into a symbol of justice, honor, and the quest for a better world. His knights, too, became embodiments of chivalric virtues, their adventures reflecting the aspirations and values of medieval society. Ballads and oral traditions played a crucial role in this transformation. In an age before widespread literacy, stories were passed down through song and verse, evolving with each retelling. The tale of Arthur, with its themes of unity, bravery, and the struggle against chaos, resonated deeply with audiences, ensuring its survival across centuries. Even today, the legend endures, a testament to the enduring power of storytelling to shape our understanding of the past. So, what does Tintagel tell us about the intersection of myth and history? It reminds us that legends often have roots in real events, even if those roots are buried under layers of embellishment. The settlement at Tintagel, with its artifacts and fortifications, offers a glimpse into a world that was both brutal and sophisticated, a world that might have inspired the tales of Camelot and its noble king. As we continue to explore the connections between ballads and archaeology, we'll see how these stories don't just preserve history, they transform it, shaping the way we remember and understand the past. And in doing so, they remind us that the line between myth and reality is often more fluid than we think, a tapestry woven from both fact and imagination. The story of Beowulf, one of the oldest surviving pieces of English literature, is a tale of monsters, heroes, and the timeless struggle between good and evil. For centuries, this epic poem was thought to be purely mythical, a vivid imagination of an ancient world filled with dragons and valiant warriors. But what if Beowulf, like so many other ballads, held fragments of historical truth? Enter the Sutton who ship burial, a stunning archaeological discovery that seems to echo the world described in the poem, blurring the lines between legend and reality. In 1939, archaeologists in Suffolk, England, uncovered an Anglo-Saxon burial site unlike any other. Beneath a massive mound lay the remains of a 27-meter-long ship, its timbers long decayed but its outline preserved in the soil. Inside, they found a treasure trove of artifacts, intricate gold jewelry, ceremonial helmets, silverware, and weapons of unparalleled craftsmanship. This wasn't just a grave, it was a monument to power, wealth, and the beliefs of a people who lived over 1,000 years ago. The Sutton Hoo burial, dating to the early 7th century, offered a glimpse into the world of the Anglo-Saxons, a world strikingly similar to the one depicted in Beowulf. The parallels are impossible to ignore. Beowulf, set in Scandinavia but written in Old English, describes a society of warrior kings, lavish feasts, and grand halls adorned with treasures. The poem speaks of a hero who sails across the sea to aid a troubled king, battling monstrous foes and earning glory through his deeds. The artifacts at Sutton Hoo, particularly the ornate helmet and the ceremonial sword, mirror the descriptions of royal regalia and weaponry in Beowulf. Even the ship itself, a symbol of status and seafaring prowess, evokes the poem's emphasis on maritime power. So, could Beowulf be more than just a story? Could it be a poetic reflection of the Anglo-Saxon world, preserving details of their culture, values, and even real events? While there's no direct evidence linking the poem to Sutton Hoo, the similarities suggest that Beowulf might have been inspired by the kind of society that produced such a burial. The poem's emphasis on loyalty, bravery, and the honoring of the dead aligns closely with the values reflected in the grave goods at Sutton Hoo, offering a window into the mindset of a people who saw themselves as part of a larger heroic tradition. But Beowulf isn't just a historical document. Like all great ballads, it's a living story, shaped and reshaped by the voices that told it. Over time, details may have been added or altered, transforming it from a record of real events into a timeless epic. This evolution is part of what makes ballads so powerful. They're not static. They grow with each retelling, adapting to new audiences while retaining their core truths. The Sutton Hoo treasure, then, isn't just a collection of artifacts. It's a key to understanding how myths like Beowulf might have originated. It shows us that these stories weren't created in a vacuum. They were inspired by the world around them, by the people who lived, fought, and dreamed of glory. And as we'll see next, this process of myth-making isn't unique to Beowulf or the Anglo-Saxons. Across cultures and centuries, ballads have served as both mirrors and windows, reflecting the realities of their time while offering a glimpse into the timeless human desire to make sense of the world through story. As we move forward, we'll explore how myths evolve over time, adapting to new contexts and audiences while preserving the essence of their origins. From Beowulf to the legends of the Vikings, these stories remind us that the past is never truly lost. It lives on in the tales we tell, the songs we sing, and the treasures we uncover. As myths and ballads travel across time and space, they don't remain static, they transform, adapting to the values, beliefs, and needs of the societies that retell them. This evolution is one of the most fascinating aspects of oral traditions, showing how stories can shift and grow while still retaining their core essence. Take, for example, the myths of ancient Greece and how they were adopted and reinterpreted by the Romans. The Greek god Zeus became Jupiter, Athena became Minerva, and the tales of their exploits were reshaped to fit the Roman worldview. While the basic narratives remained recognizable, the details often changed, reflecting the priorities and cultural identity of the Roman Empire. This process of adaptation isn't unique to Greek and Roman myths. It happens in every culture as stories are passed down and reinterpreted by new generations. A ballad that began as a historical account of a battle might later become a romanticized tale of heroism, or a myth about a natural disaster might evolve into a moral lesson about hubris. These changes aren't accidental, they're deliberate, reflecting the values and concerns of the people who tell the stories. Over time, layers of meaning accumulate, making it difficult to trace the original historical roots. But while this evolution can obscure the past, it also offers a window into the cultural shifts that shaped these stories. For instance, the Norse sagas, originally oral traditions, were written down centuries later by Christian scribes. In the process, elements of the pagan world were subtly altered or downplayed to align with Christian values. Similarly, the Arthurian Legends, which began as tales of a warrior king defending Britain, were later infused with the ideals of chivalry and courtly love during the Middle Ages. These adaptations don't just change the stories, they reveal how societies evolve, how new ideas and beliefs are integrated into existing traditions. So, how do we separate fact from fiction in these ever-changing narratives? One approach is to look for patterns, recurring themes, characters, or events that appear in multiple versions of a story. These common elements often point to a shared origin, a kernel of truth that survived the process of retelling. Another method is to compare myths with archaeological evidence, as we've seen with Troy, Elant's Ox Meadows, and Tintagel. When the stories align with the physical record, they offer a glimpse of the historical reality behind the legend. Yet, even when myths diverge from the facts, they're still valuable. They tell us how people saw themselves, how they understood their world, and how they made sense of the forces that shaped their lives. A story like the Epic of Gilgamesh, for instance, might not be a literal account of a historical flood, but it captures the universal human experience of grappling with mortality, loss, and the search for meaning. In this way, myths and ballads are more than just history. They're a reflection of the human condition, a way for us to connect with the past on a deeper level. As we explore these evolving stories, we're reminded that myths aren't just relics of the past, they're living traditions, constantly reshaped by the people who tell them. They bridge the gap between generations, preserving the wisdom, fears, and aspirations of those who came before us. And in their transformation, they offer a unique lens through which we can view not just history but ourselves. So, what do these changes tell us about the societies that retold these stories? How do the adaptations reflect the values, challenges, and dreams of the people who kept these tales alive? As we move forward, we'll delve deeper into the cultural significance of myths, exploring how they serve as mirrors of the societies that created them, and how they continue to resonate with us today. Myths and ballads are more than just stories, they're intricate tapestries woven with symbols that carry layers of meaning. These symbols, often universal across cultures, serve as a kind of shorthand for complex ideas, emotions, and experiences. A dragon isn't just a fire-breathing monster. It might represent chaos, danger, or even the untamed forces of nature. A flood isn't merely a natural disaster. It can symbolize renewal, punishment, or a fresh start. Through these powerful images, myths and ballads communicate truths that resonate deeply with the human experience, offering insights into how our ancestors understood their world. Take the dragon, for example. This fearsome creature appears in myths from Europe to Asia, often as a guardian of treasure or a destroyer of villages. But what if dragons weren't just mythical beasts? Some scholars suggest that dragon legends might have been inspired by encounters with real animals, like crocodiles or large reptiles, whose behavior seemed otherworldly to ancient people. Others propose that dragons symbolize natural disasters, such as volcanic eruptions or fierce storms, which would have been incomprehensible to early societies. By personifying these forces as dragons, storytellers could make sense of the chaos around them, turning fear into something tangible and ultimately conquerable. Floods, too, carry profound symbolic weight. Across cultures from Mesopotamia to the Americas, flood myths often serve as cautionary tales about the consequences of human behavior or the power of the divine. The story of Noah's Ark, for instance, isn't just about survival. It's about redemption and the promise of a new beginning. Similarly, the flood in the Epic of Gilgamesh reflects themes of mortality and the search for meaning in the face of overwhelming loss. These recurring motifs suggest that floods weren't just physical events, they were metaphors for upheaval, transformation, and the cyclical nature of life. Archaeologists often grapple with the challenge of interpreting these symbols in the context of their findings. When they uncover depictions of dragons or flood scenes in ancient art, they don't just see fantastical imagery, they see clues to how people understood their environment and their place within it. For example, the discovery of a Mesopotamian cylinder seal depicting a flood scene might not confirm the existence of a historical deluge, but it does reveal how deeply the idea of a great flood was embedded in the cultural consciousness. These symbols, then, become a bridge between the tangible and the intangible, offering a glimpse into the fears, hopes, and beliefs of ancient societies. But symbolism in myths isn't just about fear or destruction. It's also about hope, resilience, and the human spirit. The phoenix, a mythical bird that rises from its own ashes, is a powerful symbol of rebirth and renewal. In many ways, this mirrors the archaeological process itself, digging through layers of ash and debris to uncover the remnants of lost civilizations, bringing their stories back to life. Symbols like the phoenix remind us that even in the face of devastation, there's always the potential for new beginnings. As we explore these symbols and their meanings, it's worth asking, what do they tell us about ourselves? How do the dragons and floods of ancient myths reflect our own fears and aspirations? And how can understanding these symbols help us connect with the people who came before us? By delving into the rich symbolism of myths and ballads, we're not just uncovering the past, we're gaining insight into the timeless human experience, one symbol at a time. Next, we'll take a closer look at specific symbols and their potential meanings, examining how they've been interpreted across different cultures and contexts. From the serpent in the Garden of Eden to the sacred mountains of indigenous traditions, these symbols offer a window into the shared stories that unite us all. From the fiery beasts of European folklore to the wise, serpentine dragons of Chinese mythology, tales of these creatures have captivated imaginations for millennia. But where did these stories come from? Could they have been inspired by something as tangible as the bones of ancient giants buried beneath the earth? Let's journey into the fascinating intersection of dragon myths and the fossilized remains of dinosaurs, where legend and science collide in unexpected ways. Imagine an ancient farmer plowing a field when suddenly their tool strikes something hard. Digging deeper, they uncover massive bones far larger than any animal they've ever seen. To them, the only explanation is a creature of myth, a dragon. This scenario isn't just hypothetical. In many cultures, discoveries of dinosaur fossils have been linked to dragon legends. In China, for instance, the long, serpentine bodies of traditional dragons bear a striking resemblance to the skeletons of sauropod dinosaurs, with their elongated necks and tails. Could these fossils have inspired the iconic imagery of Chinese dragons, revered as symbols of power, wisdom, and good fortune? The connection between fossils and dragon myths isn't limited to China. In Europe, medieval accounts of dragon slayings often describe the discovery of massive bones as proof of the creature's existence. In the town of Klagenfurt, Austria, a skull unearthed in the 16th century was believed to belong to a dragon slain by a local hero. Centuries later, scientists identified the skull as that of a woolly rhinoceros, but to the people of the time, it was undeniable evidence of a legendary beast. These stories reveal how ancient and medieval societies grappled with the unknown, using myths to make sense of the world around them. What's particularly intriguing is how these interpretations vary across cultures. In the West, dragons are often depicted as fearsome, fire-breathing monsters to be conquered, reflecting themes of chaos and the triumph of order. In contrast, Chinese dragons are seen as benevolent, rain-bringing creatures, integral to the natural world and cosmic balance. These differences suggest that while the discovery of fossils might have sparked dragon myths, the way those myths developed was shaped by the values and beliefs of each society. But dragons aren't the only mythical creatures that might have roots in fossil discoveries. From the Cyclops of Greek mythology, potentially inspired by the skulls of dwarf elephants, to the griffin, a creature said to guard gold in Central Asia, many legends could have been fueled by ancient encounters with prehistoric remains. These stories remind us that myths aren't just flights of fancy, they're attempts to explain the unexplainable, to give meaning to the mysteries of the natural world. So, what does this tell us about the power of storytelling? It shows us that myths are more than just entertainment. They're a way for humans to process the unknown, to turn fear and wonder into something familiar. Whether inspired by fossils or the forces of nature, these stories have endured because they speak to something deep within us, a desire to understand the world and our place within it. As we turn our attention to other mythical creatures, we'll see how this interplay between imagination and reality continues to shape the way we see the past. From the towering giants of ancient lore to the winged serpents of distant lands, these stories offer a window into the minds of our ancestors and perhaps into our own. The myth of the Cyclops, a towering, one-eyed giant from Greek mythology, has long captured the imagination of storytellers and scholars alike. Known for their fearsome strength and singular, glaring eye, these creatures were said to inhabit remote islands, terrorizing sailors and challenging heroes like Odysseus. But what if the Cyclops wasn't born purely from imagination? What if this legend was sparked by something as ordinary and extraordinary as a fossilized elephant skull? Picture this: an ancient Greek shepherd stumbles upon a strange, massive skull buried in the earth. The skull is unlike anything he's ever seen, with a large central cavity where the nose would be. To him, this cavity might resemble a single, enormous eye socket, a sign of a giant, one-eyed being. This scenario isn't just speculation. In fact, the Mediterranean region was once home to dwarf elephants, whose fossilized remains could easily have been discovered by ancient Greeks. The skulls of these elephants, with their prominent nasal openings, bear a striking resemblance to the descriptions of Cyclops in myth. Could this simple misunderstanding have given rise to one of the most enduring legends of Greek mythology? The theory gains even more traction when we consider how myths often emerge from attempts to explain the unexplainable. To ancient Greeks, encountering such massive, unfamiliar bones would have been both awe-inspiring and terrifying. Without the framework of modern paleontology, they might have interpreted these remains as evidence of a race of giants beings that fit neatly into their existing stories of gods, monsters, and heroes. Over time, these interpretations would have been woven into the fabric of their mythology, transforming a chance discovery into a tale of epic proportions. But the Cyclops myth isn't just a story about mistaken identity. It's also a reflection of how humans grapple with the unknown. By personifying these mysterious remains as a Cyclops, the Greeks turned fear into something tangible and ultimately conquerable. The hero's triumph over the Cyclops, whether in the form of Odysseus outsmarting Polyphemus or Perseus slaying the giant, becomes a metaphor for humanity's ability to overcome the chaos and uncertainty of the world. This connection between fossils and myths isn't unique to the Cyclops. Across cultures, similar patterns emerge. In ancient China, the discovery of dinosaur bones may have inspired dragon legends. In medieval Europe, the bones of prehistoric mammals were often attributed to giants or mythical beasts. These stories remind us that myths aren't just flights of fancy, they're attempts to make sense of the world, to transform the unfamiliar into something meaningful. So, what other creatures might have been inspired by misunderstood remains? Could the griffin, a mythical beast with the body of a lion and the head of an eagle, have been born from the discovery of Protoceratops fossils in Central Asia? Or might the tales of sea monsters have been fueled by the remains of ancient marine reptiles? As we delve deeper into the intersection of myth and archaeology, we'll uncover how the stories we tell are often rooted in the mysteries of the natural world, and how, even today, they continue to shape our understanding of the past. By exploring these connections, we're reminded that myths are more than just stories. They're windows into how our ancestors saw the world, how they wrestled with its mysteries, and how they passed their wisdom down to us. And in doing so, they invite us to see the world not just as it is, but as it could be, a place where even the most ordinary discoveries can spark extraordinary tales. The myth of the Minotaur, a fearsome creature with the body of a man and the head of a bull, trapped within an inescapable labyrinth, is one of the most iconic tales from ancient Greece. It's a story of terror, heroism, and the triumph of cunning over brute strength. But could there be more to this legend than meets the eye? Enter the Palace of Knossos, a sprawling archaeological site on the island of Crete, where the lines between myth and history blur in fascinating ways. The Palace of Knossos, excavated in the early 20th century by British archaeologist Arthur Evans, is a marvel of ancient engineering. Its intricate layout, with winding corridors, multiple levels, and countless rooms, has often been compared to a labyrinth, a maze so complex that it could easily disorient anyone unfamiliar with its design. Could this have been the inspiration for the legendary labyrinth of the Minotaur? The idea isn't far-fetched. The palace's architecture, with its twisting passages and hidden chambers, might have seemed otherworldly to ancient Greeks, leading them to imagine it as the lair of a monstrous beast. But the connection between Knossos and the Minotaur goes even deeper. The Minoan civilization, which thrived on Crete from around 3000 to 1400 BC, was known for its bull imagery. Frescoes and artifacts from Knossos depict bull-leaping rituals, where acrobats vaulted over the backs of bulls in what appears to have been a sacred or ceremonial practice. This cultural emphasis on bulls could have contributed to the myth of the Minotaur, transforming a symbol of power and worship into a fearsome monster in Greek storytelling. So, how did the story evolve from a palace and its rituals to a tale of a half-man, half-bull creature? Myths often exaggerate real places and events to make them more dramatic and memorable. The labyrinth of Knossos, already a place of mystery and complexity, might have been reimagined as an inescapable maze. The bull-leaping rituals, taken out of their cultural context, could have been distorted into the image of a monstrous hybrid. Over time, as the story was passed down through generations, these elements were woven together into the myth we know today. But the story of the Minotaur isn't just about a monster, it's also about the hero who defeats it. Theseus, the Athenian prince who ventures into the labyrinth to slay the Minotaur, represents the triumph of human ingenuity over chaos and fear. His use of a ball of thread to navigate the maze and find his way back out is a metaphor for the power of strategy and reason, a theme that resonates deeply with audiences then and now. This interplay between myth and reality is a reminder of how ballads and oral traditions preserve stories. The tale of the Minotaur, while fantastical, might have its roots in a real place and real practices. Through retellings, the story was transformed into something larger than life, capturing the imagination of countless generations. As we explore these connections, we're reminded that myths are more than just stories. They're reflections of the societies that created them, shaped by their fears, values, and experiences. And just as the labyrinth of Knossos inspired the myth of the Minotaur, other ballads and legends might hold similar kernels of truth waiting to be uncovered. From the winding corridors of ancient palaces to the verses of epic poems, these stories invite us to see the past not just as a series of events, but as a living, breathing narrative that continues to shape our understanding of the world. Next, we'll delve into how ballads and oral traditions preserve these stories, transforming them over time while keeping their essence alive. Whether rooted in fact or born from imagination, these tales remind us that the line between myth and history is often more fluid than we think. The tale of Robin Hood, the outlaw who robbed from the rich to give to the poor, has been a symbol of rebellion and justice for centuries. Set in the shadowy depths of Sherwood Forest, his story is one of daring escapes, archery contests, and a steadfast commitment to fairness in an unfair world. But was Robin Hood a real person, or simply a product of vivid imaginations and the need for a hero? Scholars and archaeologists have long debated this question, searching for clues that might tie the legend to historical events or figures. One theory suggests that Robin Hood's story could be rooted in the Peasants' Revolt of 1381, a time of widespread unrest in England. During this period, the working class rose up against oppressive taxes and feudal injustices, led by figures like Wat Tyler. While there's no direct evidence linking Robin Hood to this revolt, the parallels are striking. Both stories center on the struggle against corrupt authority and the fight for the rights of the common people. Could Robin Hood have been inspired by real-life rebels, their deeds immortalized in ballads that transformed them into folk heroes? Archaeological efforts have also sought to connect the legend to specific locations, such as Sherwood Forest and Nottingham Castle. Excavations in these areas have uncovered evidence of medieval life, from hunting lodges to weapons, offering a glimpse into the world that might have inspired the tales. While no definitive proof of Robin Hood's existence has been found, these discoveries help paint a picture of the environment in which such a figure could have thrived. Sherwood Forest, with its dense woods and hidden paths, would have been the perfect setting for an outlaw to evade capture and strike against injustice. But the enduring appeal of Robin Hood isn't just about historical accuracy. It's about what he represents, the idea that one person, no matter how outnumbered or outmatched, can stand up to tyranny and make a difference. Ballads about Robin Hood often romanticize this struggle, portraying him as a larger-than-life figure who embodies the ideals of courage, resourcefulness, and fairness. These stories resonated deeply with medieval audiences, offering a sense of hope and empowerment in a world where the odds were often stacked against them. This romanticization of rebellion is a recurring theme in folk tales. From William Tell in Switzerland to Zorro in the Americas, stories of outlaws fighting for justice have captured the imagination of people across cultures and centuries. These legends often blur the line between fact and fiction, transforming historical figures into symbols of resistance and resilience. They remind us that the stories we tell about our heroes aren't just about the past, they're about the values we hold dear and the struggles we continue to face. So, what other folk heroes might have real origins? Could figures like Ned Kelly, the Australian bushranger, or Jesse James, the American outlaw, have been inspired by real events and people, their deeds embellished over time? As we explore these connections, we're reminded that myths and ballads are more than just entertainment. They're a reflection of our collective hopes, fears, and dreams. By examining the legend of Robin Hood, we see how stories can transcend time, transforming historical events into timeless tales of heroism. These narratives don't just preserve the past, they inspire us to imagine a better future, one where justice and fairness prevail. And in that sense, Robin Hood isn't just a figure of legend, he's a reminder of the power of stories to shape our world. Next, we'll turn our attention to other folk heroes and their potential ties to history, exploring how these tales continue to resonate with audiences today. From the forests of England to the plains of the Wild West, the stories we tell about our heroes reveal as much about us as they do about the past. The Trojan War, immortalized in Homer's epic poems The Iliad and the Odyssey, is one of the most enduring tales of conflict in human history. For centuries, this story of gods, heroes, and a decade-long siege was thought to be pure myth, an imaginative saga with no basis in reality. But what if the Trojan War wasn't just a story? What if it was a memory passed down through generations of a real conflict that shaped the ancient world? Enter Hisarlik, a site in modern-day Turkey that has captivated archaeologists and historians for over a century. This unassuming mound of earth is believed to be the location of ancient Troy, the legendary city at the heart of Homer's epics. Excavations at Hisarlik have revealed layers of ruins, each representing a different era of the city's long history. Among these layers, one stands out, a level marked by fire and destruction, dating to around 1200 BCE. This layer, often referred to as Troy Via, aligns with the timeline traditionally associated with the Trojan War. Evidence of violent conflict, including arrowheads, scorched walls, and hastily buried human remains, suggests that this city was indeed besieged and destroyed. Could this be the Troy of Homer's tales? While the evidence isn't conclusive, it's tantalizingly close to the world described in the Iliad, a world of warring kingdoms, alliances, and betrayals. But how did a historical conflict become the stuff of legend? The answer lies in the power of oral tradition. Long before Homer composed his epics, the story of Troy was likely passed down through generations of bards, each adding their own embellishments and interpretations. Over time, the real events of the war, whether they involved a single city or a broader regional conflict, were transformed into a larger-than-life narrative, complete with divine intervention, heroic deeds, and tragic losses. Homer's epics, then, aren't just stories about war, they're reflections of the human experience of conflict. The Iliad, in particular, captures the chaos, bravery, and heartbreak of battle with a depth that feels almost universal. From the rage of Achilles to the grief of Hector's family, the poem explores the emotional toll of war in ways that resonate across cultures and centuries. It's a reminder that, even in the midst of violence, there's humanity, moments of compassion, honor, and love that shine through the darkness. What's fascinating about the Trojan War is how it bridges myth and history. While the events described in the Iliad might not match the archaeological record exactly, they capture the essence of a real conflict, a struggle for power, resources, and survival in a turbulent world. The story of Troy, whether fully factual or partially fictional, serves as a time capsule, preserving the memory of a war that shaped the ancient Mediterranean. This interplay between myth and reality isn't unique to the Trojan War. Across cultures, ballads and epics have served as vessels for the collective memory of conflict. From the Norse sagas recounting Viking raids to the Mahabharata's tales of a devastating war in ancient India, these stories capture not just the events of battle but the emotions and lessons they leave behind. They remind us that war, for all its destruction, is also a deeply human experience, one that inspires both heroism and heartbreak. As we explore the connections between myth and history, we're reminded that the stories we tell about war aren't just about the past. They're about how we understand conflict, how we process its impact, and how we strive to make sense of a world that can often feel chaotic and cruel. The tale of Troy, like so many ballads, invites us to reflect on the enduring power of storytelling to preserve, transform, and illuminate the human experience. From the ashes of ancient cities to the verses of epic poems, these narratives remind us that the past is never truly lost. It lives on in the stories we tell, the songs we sing, and the lessons we carry forward. And as we'll see next, this connection between myth and memory extends far beyond the Trojan War, weaving a tapestry of tales that continues to shape our understanding of history and humanity. The Nibelungenlied, a Germanic epic poem steeped in mystery and intrigue, is a tale of love, betrayal, and the relentless pursuit of power. Written in the early 13th century, this sprawling narrative weaves together the fates of dragonslayer Siegfried, the valiant Kriemhild, and the cursed treasure known as the Rheingold. But what if this legendary treasure wasn't just a figment of poetic imagination? What if it was inspired by real gold hoards buried along the Rhine, remnants of a time when wealth and power were as fleeting as they were coveted? Archaeological discoveries along the Rhine River offer tantalizing clues. Over the centuries, numerous gold hoards have been unearthed in this region, dating back to the migration period and the early Middle Ages. These treasures, often hidden during times of conflict or upheaval, reflect the turbulent history of the area, a time when kingdoms rose and fell and fortunes could be lost in an instant. The Rheingold of the Nibelungenlied, with its association with both immense wealth and deadly curses, might have been inspired by such real-life treasures, their stories passed down through generations and transformed into myth. The Nibelungenlied itself is a complex tapestry of historical and mythical elements. At its heart lies the Rheingold, a treasure so vast it becomes a symbol of both power and doom. The gold's curse, which brings ruin to all who possess it, mirrors the real-life struggles of ancient rulers who amassed wealth only to see it slip through their fingers. The epic's themes of ambition, greed, and the destructive nature of unchecked power resonate deeply, offering a timeless commentary on the human condition. Interestingly, the story of the Rheingold also found new life centuries later in the operas of Richard Wagner. His monumental Ring Cycle reimagined the Nibelungenlied, blending its mythic elements with his own dramatic vision. Wagner's operas, like the original epic, explore the tension between desire and destruction, wealth and ruin. This enduring appeal of the Rheingold myth speaks to its universal themes that continue to captivate audiences across cultures and centuries. But the Nibelungenlied isn't just a cautionary tale about wealth and power. It's also a reflection of the societies that told it. The epic's vivid depictions of courtly life, heroic deeds, and tragic fates offer a window into the values and anxieties of medieval Europe. The Rheingold, with its dual nature as both a prize and a curse, embodies the complex relationship between material wealth and spiritual fulfillment, a tension that still resonates today. As we delve into the connections between myth and reality, it's worth considering how ballads like the Nibelungenlied shape culture. These stories don't just entertain, they preserve the collective memory of a people, their struggles, and their aspirations. The tale of the Rheingold, whether rooted in real treasures or born from the imagination, reminds us that myths are more than just stories. They're mirrors of the societies that created them, reflecting their hopes, fears, and dreams. From the glittering hoards of the Rhine to the operatic stages of Wagner, the Nibelungenlied continues to inspire and provoke. Its legacy is a testament to the enduring power of storytelling, a power that transcends time and place, connecting us to the past while illuminating the present. And as we'll see next, this influence extends far beyond the realms of myth, shaping the way we understand ourselves and the world around us. The stories of ancient ballads and myths aren't confined to the past, they live on, breathing life into the stories we tell today. From the pages of best-selling novels to the silver screen, these timeless tales continue to shape modern culture in ways both subtle and profound. Take J.R.R. Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings, for example. This epic fantasy, beloved by millions, is steeped in the traditions of Norse mythology. The world of Middle-earth, with its dwarves, elves, and heroic quests, draws directly from the rich tapestry of Norse sagas. Tolkien, a scholar of ancient languages and myths, wove these influences into his work, creating a story that feels both ancient and utterly new. But why do these ancient narratives still resonate with us? Perhaps it's because they tap into universal themes: courage, sacrifice, the struggle between good and evil, themes that are as relevant today as they were thousands of years ago. The hero's journey, a staple of myth and legend, remains a powerful framework for storytelling, whether in the form of Frodo Baggins carrying the One Ring to Mount Doom or Katniss Everdeen fighting for survival in the Hunger Games. These modern tales, while set in fantastical worlds, reflect the same human struggles and triumphs that inspired the ballads of old. Films, too, have embraced the enduring appeal of myth. Marvel's Thor franchise, for instance, reimagines Norse gods as superheroes, blending ancient lore with cutting-edge special effects. While the stories are updated for a modern audience, the core elements, Thor's hammer, the realm of Asgard, the eternal battle between gods and giants, are drawn directly from the Eddas, ancient Icelandic texts that preserve Norse mythology. This fusion of old and new demonstrates how myths can evolve, adapting to the needs and tastes of each generation while retaining their essence. Art, as well, has been deeply influenced by these ancient narratives. Paintings, sculptures, and even video games frequently draw on mythological themes, from the tragic beauty of Orpheus and Eurydice to the epic battles of the Mahabharata. These works don't just retell old stories, they reinterpret them, offering fresh perspectives and sparking new conversations. The myth of Persephone, for example, has inspired countless artists to explore themes of transformation, loss, and renewal, proving that these ancient tales still have the power to move and inspire. What's truly remarkable is how these stories transcend time and culture. A myth from ancient Greece can find new life in a Japanese anime, or a ballad from medieval Europe can inspire a Hollywood blockbuster. This universality speaks to something fundamental about the human experience: the need to make sense of the world, to find meaning in chaos, and to connect with something greater than ourselves. So, how do these ancient narratives continue to resonate with us today? Perhaps it's because they remind us of who we are and who we aspire to be. They challenge us to confront our fears, to strive for greatness, and to believe in the possibility of a better world. Whether through a novel, a film, or a painting, these stories invite us to see ourselves reflected in the struggles and triumphs of heroes long gone, and to carry their lessons forward into our own lives. As we look to the future, it's clear that the power of myth is far from spent. These ancient ballads, with their timeless themes and universal appeal, will continue to inspire and shape the stories we tell for generations to come. And in doing so, they remind us that the past is never truly lost. It lives on in the stories we cherish and the worlds we create. In the quest to decode ancient myths, technology has become an indispensable ally, transforming the way we uncover and interpret the past. Gone are the days when archaeologists relied solely on shovels and intuition. Today, tools like LiDAR, light detection, and ranging are revolutionizing the field, revealing hidden landscapes and structures that were once invisible to the naked eye. Imagine a dense rainforest, its canopy so thick that no light penetrates to the forest floor. For centuries, the secrets beneath remained buried until LiDAR pierced through the foliage, mapping the terrain below with astonishing precision. In the Amazon, this technology has uncovered sprawling networks of ancient cities, complete with roads, plazas, and agricultural systems that suggest a level of sophistication previously unimaginable. These discoveries are rewriting the history of the region, showing that the Amazon was not an untouched wilderness but a vibrant hub of human activity, a revelation that echoes the myths of lost civilizations that have long captivated our imagination. But it's not just landscapes that technology is illuminating. Advances in DNA analysis are allowing us to peer into the genetic histories of ancient peoples, tracing migration patterns and uncovering connections that were once shrouded in mystery. For instance, recent studies of ancient DNA from the Bronze Age have revealed surprising links between populations across Europe and Asia, showing how far and wide people traveled, traded, and intermingled. These findings don't just fill in gaps in the historical record, they breathe life into the stories passed down through generations. The epic tales of migrations and conquests found in myths and ballads now have a scientific foundation, grounding them in the movements of real people who shaped the world we know today. One of the most exciting aspects of this technological revolution is how it's reshaping our understanding of myths. Take, for example, the legend of the Amazon warrior women, long dismissed as pure fantasy. Recent archaeological discoveries, bolstered by DNA evidence, suggest that nomadic tribes of the Eurasian steppe included women who fought alongside men, challenging traditional gender roles. These findings don't just validate the myth, they deepen it, showing how stories of warrior women might have been inspired by real cultures, their deeds immortalized in tales that traveled across continents. Looking ahead, the possibilities are limitless. As technology continues to evolve, so too does our ability to uncover the truths hidden within ancient stories. What if we could use artificial intelligence to analyze patterns in myths, identifying shared themes and origins across cultures? Or what if virtual reality allowed us to step into the worlds described in ballads, experiencing them as our ancestors might have? These innovations aren't just tools for discovery, they're gateways to a deeper connection with the past, allowing us to see the world through the eyes of those who came before us. The role of technology in myth decoding is more than just a scientific advancement, it's a bridge between the ancient and the modern, a way to honor the stories that have shaped humanity while uncovering the truths they hold. As we continue to explore these connections, we're reminded that the past is not a static relic but a living, breathing narrative, one that grows richer with every new discovery. And in this journey of exploration, we're not just uncovering history, we're rediscovering ourselves. From the hidden cities of the Amazon to the genetic echoes of ancient migrations, technology is helping us see the past in ways that were once unimaginable. As we move forward, these tools will continue to illuminate the stories that bind us, showing us that the line between myth and history is not a barrier but a bridge, one that connects us to the people, places, and events that have shaped our world. And as we cross that bridge, we're not just learning about the past, we're uncovering the threads that weave us all together. As we stand on the brink of a new era in archaeology and myth studies, the tools at our disposal are evolving faster than ever before. Imagine a world where artificial intelligence can sift through thousands of ancient texts in seconds, identifying patterns and connections that would take a human researcher a lifetime to uncover. AI isn't just a futuristic dream, it's already being used to decode languages, translate forgotten scripts, and even predict where undiscovered sites might lie. What if AI could one day piece together fragmented myths, reconstructing lost stories or revealing hidden layers of meaning in tales we thought we knew? The possibilities are as thrilling as they are endless, but the future of myth and archaeology isn't just about technology, it's also about the places we've yet to explore. There are still vast swaths of the earth, from the depths of the Amazon to the deserts of Central Asia, where untold stories wait beneath the soil. What if the next excavation uncovers the ruins of a civilization mentioned only in myth? Or what if we find evidence of a legendary event like a flood or a great migration that reshapes our understanding of history? The past is far from fully unearthed, and every new discovery has the potential to rewrite the stories we tell about ourselves. One of the most exciting prospects is the growing collaboration between disciplines. Archaeologists, historians, geneticists, and even climate scientists are coming together to tackle questions that once seemed unanswerable. For example, by studying ancient DNA alongside climate data, researchers can trace how environmental changes influenced migration patterns, wars, and even the spread of myths. This interdisciplinary approach could help us understand why certain stories persisted across cultures, or how myths evolved as people moved and adapted to new land. Then there's the question of what we might learn from the stars. Archaeoastronomy, the study of how ancient cultures understood and used celestial events, is shedding light on the myths of the past. What if future discoveries reveal that ancient ballads about the heavens weren't just poetic musings but encoded knowledge of astronomy? Could myths about the sun, moon, and stars hold clues to lost technologies or forgotten ways of life? Of course, with every new discovery comes new questions. As we bridge the gap between myth and archaeology, we're also forced to grapple with the ethical implications of our work. How do we honor the cultures that created these stories while interpreting them through a modern lens? And how do we ensure that the voices of the past aren't drowned out by our own assumptions and biases? These are challenges that will shape the future of the field, reminding us that the study of myths isn't just about uncovering facts, it's about understanding humanity. So, what mysteries might we solve next? Could we finally pinpoint the origins of the Atlantis legend, or uncover the truth behind the flood myths that span the globe? Perhaps we'll find a lost city that inspired the tales of Camelot, or decode a language that unlocks secrets of the ancient world. Whatever the future holds, one thing is certain: the stories we tell about the past will continue to evolve just as they always have. As we reflect on the journey of myth and archaeology, it's clear that these fields are more than just academic pursuits. They're a way for us to connect with the people who came before us, to hear their voices across the centuries. And in doing so, we're reminded that the past isn't a static relic. It's a living, breathing narrative, one that we're still writing today. The discoveries of tomorrow won't just change what we know, they'll change how we see ourselves and how we imagine the world we're building for the future. As we uncover the threads that connect myths to history, we also confront a profound ethical question. How do we interpret and share these ancient stories without distorting or diminishing their cultural significance? The act of decoding myths isn't just an academic exercise, it's a responsibility, one that requires sensitivity, respect, and a deep understanding of the communities that created these narratives. Every myth is more than a story. It's a piece of someone's heritage, a reflection of their identity, and a living tradition that deserves to be honored. One of the most pressing challenges is the risk of cultural appropriation. When myths are taken out of their original context and repurposed for entertainment or profit, they can lose their deeper meaning. Think of how often ancient symbols or stories are used in modern media without regard for their cultural significance. This not only disrespects the communities that hold these traditions sacred, but also risks perpetuating stereotypes or misunderstandings. For example, the commercialization of Native American myths has often reduced them to simplistic caricatures, stripping away their complexity and spiritual depth. To avoid these pitfalls, researchers and storytellers must approach myths with humility and collaboration. This means working closely with the descendants of the cultures being studied, listening to their voices, and ensuring that their perspectives are central to the interpretation and presentation of their stories. It's about recognizing that myths are not just relics of the past, but living traditions that continue to shape the identities of communities today. By treating these narratives with care, we can preserve their integrity while still uncovering the historical truths they may contain. Another ethical dilemma lies in the potential for misinterpretation. Myths are often layered with symbolism and meaning that can be difficult to fully grasp without an intimate understanding of the culture that produced them. A story about a great flood, for instance, might symbolize renewal in one culture and divine punishment in another. Misreading these nuances can lead to oversimplified or inaccurate portrayals, distorting the cultural legacy of the people who created them. Balancing scientific inquiry with cultural respect isn't always easy, but it's essential. Archaeologists and historians must navigate this tension carefully, using their tools to uncover the past while remaining mindful of the living traditions that surround them. This might mean refraining from excavating sacred sites unless invited, or ensuring that the stories they share are told in a way that respects their original intent. It's a delicate dance, but one that can yield incredible insights when done thoughtfully. At its heart, the ethical study of myths is about preserving these stories for future generations, not just as historical curiosities, but as vital expressions of human creativity and resilience. Myths shape identity, grounding communities in a shared sense of history and purpose. They remind us of where we've come from, who we are, and what we value. When we treat these narratives with the respect they deserve, we're not just honoring the past, we're enriching the present. As we move forward, we'll explore how myths continue to shape identity, both for individuals and entire cultures. From the epic tales of ancient heroes to the personal stories that define our lives, these narratives remind us that the past is never truly gone. It lives on in the stories we tell and the identities we create. And in that process, we find not just history, but ourselves. Myths and ballads are more than just stories, they are the lifeblood of cultural identity, weaving together the threads of history, values, and shared experience. For many communities, these narratives are a source of pride, a way to honor their ancestors, and a means of preserving traditions that might otherwise fade with time. They are not relics of the past, but living, breathing expressions of who we are and where we come from. Take, for instance, the Maori legends of New Zealand. For the Maori people, these stories are not merely tales to be told. They are a vital part of their identity, a connection to their ancestors or to Puna and the land they call home. One of the most iconic Maori myths is the story of Maui, a trickster demigod who fished up the North Island of New Zealand from the depths of the ocean. This tale isn't just a whimsical explanation of the island's origin, it's a powerful reminder of the Maori's deep bond with the land, or whenua. Through this story, the Maori express their respect for the environment and their belief in the interconnectedness of all things. It's a narrative that shapes their worldview, guiding everything from their stewardship of the land to their sense of community. For the Maori, myths like these are not just stories, they are a way of life, a source of strength and continuity in a rapidly changing world. Similarly, the Aboriginal Dreamtime stories of Australia serve as a cornerstone of cultural identity for Indigenous Australians. These narratives, passed down through countless generations, explain the creation of the world and the spiritual connections between people, land, and all living things. The Dreamtime is not just a collection of myths, it's a framework for understanding existence itself. Each story is tied to specific places, a rock formation, a river, a mountain, imbuing the landscape with sacred meaning. For Aboriginal communities, these stories are a living link to their ancestors, a way to maintain their connection to the land and to each other. They are a source of resilience, helping to preserve their culture in the face of colonization and modernization. What's remarkable about these narratives is how they transcend time and space, connecting people to their past while guiding them into the future. They are not static, they evolve, adapting to new context while retaining their core truth. For the Maori and Aboriginal peoples, myths are not just about remembering the past, they are about shaping the present and future. They provide a sense of belonging, a shared identity that unites communities and strengthens their resolve to preserve their heritage. But the power of myths to shape cultural identity isn't limited to indigenous cultures. Every society has its own stories, its own way of making sense of the world and its place in it. From the Greek myths that explore the complexities of human nature to the Norse sagas that celebrate bravery and resilience, these narratives reflect the values and aspirations of the people who created them. They remind us that no matter where we come from, we are all part of a larger story, one that stretches back through time and forward into the future. So, how do these myths unite us across time and space? They do so by connecting us to something greater than ourselves, a shared heritage, a common humanity. They remind us that despite our differences, we are all shaped by the stories we tell and the values we hold dear. And in that shared experience, we find not just identity, but unity. As we reflect on the role of myths in shaping cultural identity, we're reminded that these stories are more than just words. They are the heartbeat of who we are. They carry the wisdom of our ancestors, the hopes of our communities, and the dreams of our future. And in their enduring power, we find a bridge between the past and the present, a way to honor where we've been while charting a path forward. From the Maori legends of New Zealand to the Dreamtime stories of Aboriginal Australia, these narratives remind us that myths are not just tales of the past, they are the foundation of our identity, the stories that make us who we are. And as we move forward, we'll explore how these ancient narratives continue to inspire and unite us, shaping the way we see ourselves and the world around us. What's fascinating about myths is how often they echo one another across cultures, even when separated by vast distances and centuries. Take flood stories, for example. From the Epic of Gilgamesh in Mesopotamia to the biblical tale of Noah's Ark, and from the Hindu story of Manu to the indigenous Australian legend of the Great Flood, these narratives share striking similarities. A catastrophic deluge, a hero who survives, and a promise of renewal, these themes appear again and again, as though woven into the fabric of humanity itself. Why do these parallels exist, and what do they tell us about the collective human experience? One theory is that these shared myths stem from universal human experiences. Floods, for instance, are a natural phenomenon that have shaped human life for millennia. Early civilizations often arose near rivers, which provided fertile soil and resources, but also posed the threat of devastating floods. It's not hard to imagine how such events could inspire stories of divine retribution or rebirth, serving as cautionary tales or symbols of hope. In this sense, flood myths might reflect a shared memory of humanity's vulnerability to nature's power, a memory passed down through generations. Creation myths, too, reveal remarkable similarities across cultures. Whether it's the Norse tale of Ymir's body forming the world or the Polynesian story of the Sky Father Ranginui and Earth Mother Papatuanuku, many myths describe the universe emerging from chaos, shaped by divine forces or primal beings. These stories often explore fundamental questions: where did we come from? Why are we here? While the details vary, the underlying themes, creation, order, and the relationship between humans and the divine, are strikingly consistent. Another compelling explanation for these parallels lies in ancient migrations. As humans spread across the globe, they carried their stories with them, adapting them to new environments and cultures. Over time, these narratives evolved, but their core elements remained, creating a web of interconnected myths. Genetic and archaeological evidence supports this idea, showing how early humans moved and mingled, sharing not only their genes but also their stories. What's truly remarkable is what these similarities reveal about humanity. despite our differences, we share a common impulse to make sense of the world through storytelling. Myths, in all their diversity, reflect our deepest fears, hopes, and questions. They remind us that, no matter where we come from, we are all part of a larger human story, one that transcends borders and time. These universal themes also highlight how myths inspire exploration. Just as ancient tales of distant lands and heroic quests motivated early adventurers, they continue to fuel our curiosity today. The myths of Atlantis or El Dorado, for instance, have driven explorers to search for lost cities, pushing the boundaries of what we know about the world. In a way, myths are a call to discovery, urging us to seek out the unknown and uncover the truths hidden within our shared history. So, what does the global nature of myths tell us? It shows us that, beneath the surface of our differences, we are united by the stories we tell. These narratives, whether born from shared experiences or ancient migrations, remind us of our common humanity. And as we continue to explore the world and its mysteries, we carry these myths with us, not just as relics of the past, but as guides for the future. They inspire us to ask questions, to seek connections, and to imagine a world where the boundaries between cultures are bridged by the power of story. From the flood myths that span continents to the creation stories that echo across time, these narratives remind us that myths are more than just tales. They are a reflection of who we are and who we aspire to be. And as we turn our gaze to the horizon, we'll see how these ancient stories continue to inspire exploration, curiosity, and the relentless human spirit to uncover the unknown. Myths have always been more than just stories. They've been invitations to explore, to venture into the unknown, and to push the boundaries of what we thought was possible. Think about the legend of El Dorado, the fabled city of gold hidden deep in the South American jungles. For centuries, this tantalizing myth lured explorers, from Spanish conquistadors to modern-day adventurers, into the heart of uncharted territories. They braved treacherous terrain, relentless heat, and deadly diseases, driven by the promise of unimaginable wealth. Yet, for all their efforts, El Dorado remained elusive, a shimmering mirage that seemed to retreat with every step forward. But here's the thing. Even though the city of gold was never found, the search for it transformed the map of the world. Expeditions launched in pursuit of El Dorado led to the discovery of new lands, rivers, and peoples, expanding human knowledge and reshaping our understanding of the Americas. The same can be said for the quest for the Holy Grail, a central symbol in Arthurian legends. This sacred relic, said to grant eternal life or divine favor, captivated the imaginations of medieval knights and inspired countless quests across Europe. While the Grail itself was never found, the stories surrounding it sparked a sense of purpose and adventure that drove explorers to seek out new horizons. They weren't just searching for a physical object, they were chasing an ideal, a symbol of purity, redemption, and the unattainable. In this way, myths like the Holy Grail became catalysts for exploration, not just of the physical world but of the human spirit. What's remarkable about these myths is how they blur the line between reality and imagination. They challenge us to question what we know and to venture beyond the familiar. Take the legend of the Fountain of Youth, for instance. Stories of a magical spring that could restore youth and vitality inspired explorers like Ponce de Leon to sail to the New World, ultimately leading to the European discovery of Florida. While the fountain itself remains a myth, the journeys it inspired opened up new possibilities and reshaped the course of history. But why do these stories have such power? Part of it lies in their ability to tap into our deepest desires for wealth, for immortality, for meaning. Myths like El Dorado or the Holy Grail represent more than just material rewards. They embody the human yearning for something greater, something beyond the mundane. They remind us that exploration isn't just about discovering new lands or treasures. It's about discovering ourselves, about pushing the limits of what we believe is possible. Yet, myths also challenge our understanding of history. They force us to confront the gaps in our knowledge, the mysteries that remain unsolved. For example, the Polynesian navigators who settled the Pacific Islands relied on oral traditions and celestial myths to guide their voyages across vast, uncharted oceans. These stories, passed down through generations, encoded knowledge of the stars' currents and winds, knowledge that modern science is only now beginning to fully understand. In this way, myths aren't just obstacles to historical accuracy. They're keys to unlocking it, offering insights into how ancient societies understood and navigated their world. As we reflect on the role of myths in exploration, it's worth considering how they continue to shape our ambitions today. From the search for extraterrestrial life to the exploration of the deep sea, modern quests are still driven by the same sense of wonder and curiosity that inspired the legends of old. Myths remind us that the unknown isn't something to fear. It's something to embrace, to explore, and to transform into new possibilities. So, what's next? As we turn our attention to how myths challenge our understanding of history, we'll uncover how these stories not only inspire exploration but also reshape the way we see the past. From the ruins of ancient cities to the stars above, myths continue to guide us, urging us to look beyond the surface and uncover the truths hidden within. And in doing so, they remind us that the greatest adventure of all is the quest for knowledge itself. Myths have a unique power to challenge the way we understand history, often offering perspectives that diverge sharply from traditional narratives. While written records have long been considered the gold standard of historical evidence, they are not without their biases and limitations. Oral traditions, on the other hand, preserved by indigenous peoples and other communities, provide a different lens through which to view the past, one that is deeply rooted in lived experience and cultural memory. These stories, passed down through generations, often contradict or complicate the accounts found in written texts, reminding us that history is rarely as straightforward as it seems. Take, for instance, the oral histories of the indigenous peoples of North America. For centuries, their stories of creation, migration, and survival were dismissed as mere folklore, overshadowed by the written records of European colonizers. Yet these narratives hold invaluable insights into the lives and struggles of indigenous communities, offering perspectives that written documents often ignore or distort. The story of the Wampanoag people, for example, provides a stark contrast to the traditional Thanksgiving narrative. While many Americans grow up learning about a harmonious feast between pilgrims and Native Americans, Wampanoag oral histories recount a far more complex and painful history of displacement and conflict. These stories challenge us to reconsider the dominant historical narrative, urging us to acknowledge the voices that have been marginalized or silenced. Similarly, in Australia, the Dreamtime stories of Aboriginal peoples offer a profound understanding of the land and its history that predates European colonization by tens of thousands of years. These narratives, rich with spiritual and ecological wisdom, reveal a deep connection to the environment that written records often fail to capture. When European settlers arrived, they saw the land as untouched wilderness, a terra nullius ripe for exploitation. But for the Aboriginal people, every rock, river, and tree held significance, woven into stories that had been passed down for millennia. By listening to these oral traditions, we gain a fuller picture of the past, one that challenges the colonial narrative and highlights the resilience and knowledge of indigenous cultures. This tension between written and oral histories isn't just about differing accounts, it's about power. Written records have historically been controlled by those in positions of authority, kings, conquerors, and chroniclers who shaped the narrative to serve their own interests. Oral traditions, by contrast, often come from communities that have been excluded from these power structures. They offer a counterbalance, a way to reclaim history from the margins and challenge the dominant story. But acknowledging these alternative perspectives isn't just an academic exercise, it's a moral imperative. By considering multiple sources, we move closer to a more inclusive and accurate understanding of the past. Myths and oral histories remind us that history is not a single, fixed story but a tapestry of voices, each adding its own thread to the larger narrative. They challenge us to question what we think we know and to listen to the stories that have been overlooked or dismissed. As we reflect on the role of myths in shaping our understanding of history, it's clear that these narratives are more than just stories. They are vital tools for uncovering the truth. They remind us that history is not just about facts and dates, but about the people who lived it, the cultures that shaped it, and the stories that keep it alive. And in doing so, they invite us to see the past not as a static relic, but as a living, evolving conversation, one that we all have a role in shaping. From the oral traditions of indigenous peoples to the myths that challenge colonial narratives, these stories offer a richer, more nuanced understanding of history. They remind us that the past is not a monologue but a dialogue, a chorus of voices that deserve to be heard. And as we move forward, we carry these lessons with us, striving to create a history that is as diverse and dynamic as the world we live in. So, what does this mean for how we approach history? It means embracing complexity, seeking out multiple perspectives, and recognizing that the truth is often found not in a single story but in the interplay between them. Myths, with their ability to challenge and transform our understanding, remind us that history is not just about what happened, it's about how we remember it and why. As we reach the end of this journey through ancient ballads, hidden lore, and archaeological discoveries, it's worth taking a moment to reflect on what we've uncovered. These stories, passed down through generations, are more than just tales of gods, heroes, and monsters. They are windows into the lives, values, and struggles of the people who came before us. From the ruins of Troy to the whispers of Atlantis, from the flood myths that span cultures to the sagas of Viking explorers, each narrative carries a piece of the past, preserved in the rhythms of poetry and song. What's remarkable is how these myths align with archaeological findings, offering tangible evidence that connects the dots between story and history. The discovery of Troy validated the Homeric epics, while the Norse settlement at Eland's Ox Meadows brought the Viking sagas to life. These connections remind us that myths aren't just flights of fancy, they are rooted in real events, real places, and real people. They serve as time capsules, preserving the collective memory of societies long gone, while also challenging us to rethink what we know about history. But myths do more than just preserve the past, they shape our understanding of it. They provide a framework for interpreting the world, offering insights into the fears, hopes, and values of ancient cultures. A flood myth isn't just about water, it's about renewal, punishment, or the fragility of life. A hero's journey isn't just an adventure, it's a metaphor for resilience, courage, and the human spirit. These themes resonate across time and culture, reminding us of our shared humanity and the timeless questions that unite us. Beyond their historical significance, myths also inspire us to explore, to question, and to imagine. They've driven explorers to search for lost cities, archaeologists to uncover forgotten civilizations, and storytellers to weave new tales from old threads. In a way, myths are like maps not just of the physical world, but of the human experience. They guide us, challenge us, and remind us that the past is never truly lost. It lives on in the stories we tell and the discoveries we make. As we look to the future, these ancient narratives continue to hold relevance. They remind us of the power of storytelling, not just as a way to preserve history, but as a way to shape it. By understanding the myths of the past, we gain insight into the values and challenges that have shaped humanity, helping us navigate the complexities of the present and envision a better future. So, what's the takeaway from all of this? Myths are more than just stories. They are bridges between the past and the present, between the tangible and the intangible. They connect us to our ancestors, to each other, and to the enduring questions that define what it means to be human. Whether etched in clay, sung by bards, or unearthed by archaeologists, these tales remind us that history is not just about facts, it's about the stories we tell, the meanings we find, and the connections we make. As we wrap up this exploration, let's carry forward the lessons these myths have taught us. They invite us to see the world with curiosity and wonder, to honor the voices of the past, and to recognize the power of storytelling in shaping our collective journey. And in doing so, they remind us that the past is not just a place to visit. It's a living, breathing part of who we are. From the ballads of ancient bards to the artifacts unearthed by modern archaeologists, the stories we've explored today are a testament to the enduring power of myth. They challenge us, inspire us, and connect us, weaving a tapestry of history and imagination that continues to shape our world. And as we move forward, these narratives will remain a source of wisdom, wonder, and endless discovery. As we come to the end of our journey through the intertwined worlds of myth and history, one thing becomes undeniably clear: these ancient ballads and hidden lore are far more than just stories. They are threads woven into the fabric of our shared human experience, connecting us to the lives, dreams, and struggles of those who came before us. Through these tales, we glimpse not only the events that shaped their world, but also the timeless questions that continue to shape ours. What does it mean to be human? How do we navigate the forces of nature, power, and fate? And perhaps most importantly, how do we ensure that our stories, our truths, are not forgotten? The beauty of myths lies in their ability to transcend time and place. Whether etched on clay tablets, sung by wandering bards, or whispered around a fire, these narratives carry the echoes of countless generations. They remind us that history is not just a collection of dates and artifacts. It's a living, breathing conversation between the past and the present. When we listen to these stories, we're not just learning about ancient civilizations, we're connecting with the universal hopes, fears, and dreams that unite us all. Take a moment to consider the stories that resonate with you. Perhaps it's the courage of Beowulf facing a monstrous foe, the ingenuity of Theseus navigating the labyrinth, or the resilience of Utnapishtim surviving a great flood. These tales, while rooted in specific times and places, speak to something deeper, a shared humanity that binds us across centuries and continents. They challenge us to see ourselves in the struggles and triumphs of our ancestors, to find meaning in their stories, and in turn, to reflect on the stories we are creating today. But the journey doesn't end here. The mysteries of the past are vast, and there's still so much to uncover. Every myth, every ballad, every archaeological discovery invites us to dig deeper, to ask new questions, and to see the world through the eyes of those who came before us. What other hidden truths might lie buried beneath the soil or hidden within the verses of an ancient song? What stories are waiting to be rediscovered, reinterpreted, and retold? The answers are out there, waiting for curious minds to find them. So, what's next? The beauty of these stories is that they're not just relics of the past, they're invitations to explore, to wonder, and to connect. Whether you're diving into the pages of an ancient epic, visiting an archaeological site, or simply sharing a story with someone you love, you're part of this timeless tradition. You're keeping the past alive, one story at a time. Before we part ways, I'd love to hear from you. Which myths or ballads have captured your imagination? Do you have a favorite tale that feels particularly meaningful or relevant to your life? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I can't wait to hear your stories. And if you're hungry for more, be sure to explore the other videos on this channel, where we continue to unravel the mysteries of history, myth, and the human experience. As we close this chapter, let's carry forward the sense of wonder and curiosity that these stories inspire. The past is not a static thing, it's a living, breathing narrative, one that we are all a part of. So let's keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep telling the stories that connect us across time and space. Because in the end, it's not just about understanding the past, it's about discovering who we are and where we're going. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Until next time, stay curious and remember, the greatest stories are the ones we have yet